Hi, this is Travis from POSGuys.com. Today we're going over a buyer's guide for all-in-one point-of-sale computers. There's several different types and there's different features that make it great for one business and not so great for another. So we're going to go through kind of the main things to look for when looking at a point-of-sale computer. Step one in the process is to identify what software you're going to be running. If you're going to be running a retail software and it stretches out to full screen, then normally a widescreen layout works really well because it gives you more room to see details on the items. So this is Cash Register Express, and you can see that when you add an item to the order, you can see the part number, you can see the item description, then they have quantity and price. There's a lot of details that you need to know about a item when you add it to the order. Versus if you look at restaurant software, what you're going to want is a friendly grid, and in most cases a square 4x3 type of screen resolution is generally what you have. Aldello, our most popular restaurant software, uses an older 800x600 resolution, so you really have to zoom in tight if you want to go full screen. If you try to put a square shaped software on a rectangle, then you have kind of wasted space. Conversely, if you take a rectangle shaped software and put it on a square, then you're also wasting space. So get the screen resolution and aspect ratio that matches your software. When looking at a restaurant software, typically you're looking at a 4x3 screen. So it's shaped to fit as many buttons as it can in kind of on one side, and then normally you'll see an item grid on the other side. With a touchscreen monitor and a restaurant, you need it to be very stable versus retail, where you're going to be adding items to the order with a barcode scanner. You're going to be touching everything on a touchscreen monitor, so you want it to be very stable. If you look at the base, how it mounts, it's very strong. There's very little wobble. If you compare this to kind of a home touchscreen, where it's designed to look pretty, they're usually wider and the bases are much skinnier, and therefore when you touch it, it sort of wobbles. With extensive usage, it can actually make you kind of dizzy, so having a very sturdy base is very important. Additionally, you want it to be somewhat spill proof. So this has an IP rating on it, and it's kind of splash proof, so that if you had to get it wet, you can wipe it down and you're okay. There's also different types of touchscreens. If you're going to be using pens or you're going to want to wear gloves, then you're going to want a resistive touchscreen where the screen actually flexes a little, and that's how it determines where the cursor is. If you want a prettier screen that looks nicer, has kind of more of vibrant colors on it, then a PCAP capacitive screen will work better. Processor-wise, when you're looking at a computer for restaurants, you want it to be somewhat powerful. An i3 or above is generally recommended. You'll see a lot of J1900s available, but they tend to be underpowered for restaurant usage. The reason is that there is actually a lot of graphics going on. Every time you change to a different menu, it has to redraw the screen, and if you're trying to go really fast and add items rapidly, then you need it to draw as fast as possible. A lot of more fancier softwares have kind of drop shadow effects to the buttons, or they're even multi-touch where you can swipe up and down and screens will slide. In order to be very responsive and quick, you need a good processor for that, so definitely look for an i3 or above. Your software manufacturer will have minimum specs on their website. Make sure that you get a processor that meets that minimum spec. Additionally, an SSD and more RAM will make it kind of a speedier experience and more responsive. So getting above 4 gigabytes of RAM, I wouldn't go below 4 gigabytes, and then a 60 gigabyte SSD is a good place to start. When looking at all-in-one computers for retail, widescreen resolutions typically work great. You have the bigger grid that shows more item information. Additionally, there's a couple other things to look at with retail computers. You do want a good touchscreen that doesn't wobble a lot on it, but you also have more requirements in regards to integrated peripherals. This is a TP5 and it has a built-in receipt printer. The paper release is right here. It opens up. So it's kind of a space-saving feature with a regular 3-inch printer built into the base. of it. You also have a built-in card reader, and you have USB port right in the front. So if you want to attach a barcode scanner, you can plug it in right there. There are, of course, many ports in the back. We'll take a look at those. You need a lot of USB ports on a retail point-of-sale computer. In addition to the barcode scanner, you also need USB ports for the keyboard and mouse if you want keyboard and mice. If you're using a scale, then you'll need a serial port. So usually serial ports now are kind of expansion ports where you'll have the 9-pin connection on the bottom, and then you plug it into the expansion port on the back. So it looks something like an Ethernet cable here, and then it plugs in down below, and then you have serial port. You'll need a wired connection, and there's also a cash port for attaching the cash drawer. So usually you want at least 4 USB ports, a serial port, a cash drawer port. If you have an integrated printer, if you have an external printer, then you need a USB port for that printer on it as well. So more ports the better. When looking at retail, there's a lot of accessories that you need to plug in. Typically with retail, your point-of-sale computer will be sitting on top of a cash drawer, so that space isn't quite as big of a concern as in restaurant, where you're going to want to wall mount it as much, so smaller is better. Processor wise, i3 or better is always recommended, but if you want to go with a J1900 and a fanless configuration, it works a little better for retail, where it's a little less graphically intensive. It's driven through keystrokes or through a barcode scanner, so instead of having to draw many screens that have lots of buttons on it, you can just add to a single grid using a barcode scanner, so you can get away with a slightly less powerful computer. Of course, check with your software manufacturer and see what the minimum specs are for that point-of-sale software. Tablets have also become popular for point-of-sale. There's a couple things to keep in mind when buying a tablet. If you buy a consumer-grade tablet and you're going to use it in your business, typically they're designed for consumer type of activities where you're going to be browsing the internet, you're going to be playing games and such. You don't have to hook up accessories like receipt printers, barcode scanners, keyboards, things like that. So typically there is no ports on a consumer tablet, and therefore adding in any kind of accessory is a little harder or a little more expensive because you have to go with a Bluetooth version rather than a USB version. Additionally, there's not great charging bases for them. So this is actually a charging base. This is a Zebra tablet. It comes in both a Windows and an Android version. If you want to release it, you can pull your tablet out and then you're in tablet mode. The tablet was built for businesses, and there's actually a full-size USB port here right on the side. So if you needed to plug a printer or a barcode scanner into the tablet itself, you can. The base also expands and has USB ports. So there's 3 USB ports in the base. If you wanted to do a wired connection, you can do it through that, and then it even has an HDMI expansion port on the bottom. Also, the battery on it is replaceable. Unlike most consumer level mobile computers or tablets, you can't switch out the battery. This one, you can switch out the battery, and the battery itself even has a meter on it to tell you how much of a charge that the battery has. So there's a little meter there to tell you with the battery. So if you want to have multiple batteries for your tablet, you can do that if you have one purpose-built for point of sale. If you're using your home tablet, it doesn't necessarily have those kinds of features. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to tablet use is the power of the processor on it. Tablets tend to be lower powered processors that are good for extending battery life, but they're not necessarily the most powerful processors in the world. So trying to run restaurant software that's designed to work on an i3 processor using an ARM type of processor can definitely be a struggle on it. If your software is web-based, then usually that's a pretty good match because tablets run browsers pretty quickly. So that might work good for your situation, but of course check with your software manufacturer and make sure that they know you'll be running the software on a tablet and that it will work with their software. When looking at a point-of-sale computer for your business, make sure you get the POS computer that matches your business's need. Widescreen typically for retail, 4x3 typically for restaurant. Also, if you're going to be wall mounting your computer because you're going to be taking orders in a hallway or something like that, make sure that the computer that you're looking for can be wall mounted. Sometimes you have to buy extra brackets, sometimes it comes with a bracket, sometimes the base can convert into a wall mount hanging, but definitely take a look to make sure that there's a VESA mounting option or that the base can be hung on the wall as well. And then make sure that you get one powerful enough to run the point of sale software that you're looking for. For more information on point of sale computers or to speak with an expert, please visit us at POSGuys.com. Thanks.